All right, good afternoon and welcome to the meeting of the Entertainment and Facilities Committee. I'm joined by my colleagues, Mr. Rue, Mr. O'Farrell, Mr. Krikorian. Madam Clerk, unless there's any objections, I'd like to take items 2, 5, and 6 on consent.
No objections.
No objections? So moved. I noticed that I do have a card, Madam Clerk, for item 5. Yes, so we could take that. Antonio Ramirez, do you want to speak on item 5, ma'am? I've just taken that item on consent before we move on to item 1. Go ahead. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Madam. Thank you. I am not against a storage space if it is for the public. However, it is truly a secure and private space for all storage spaces do get broken into. So while you are paying your monthly dues, more often than not, people break into your storage spaces. What I'd like to know is, are these storages going to be utilized by the public, or is it just for political officials? And how secure would they be? As you know, there is not one storage space or storage facility that is actually safe-proof, because more often than not, they are broken into by staff and outside gangbangers and wetbacks who run the neighborhood. And so I've had to carry my things around, as most of you have already seen. I cannot find one storage facility that is safe, that I don't have to worry about. So as you already seen, all of you, I bring my stuff with me. As a matter of fact, I left it parked outside somewhere with an elderly lady. So I'd like to know where there might be a safe storage facility that you can guarantee.
Your minute is up. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let's move on to item 1. Madam Clerk, can you read the item 1 into the record?
For item 1, we have a communication from the mayor. This has to do with the appointment of Ms. Pamela Bakewell to the Commission on the Status of Women for the term ending June 30th, 2019. Ms. Bakewell will fill the vacancy created by Dallas Fowler, who has resigned. And I believe Ms. Bakewell is here.
Ms. Bakewell, do you mind coming up? Good afternoon. If you don't mind just giving us a quick summary of who you are, and welcome to our committee.
Thank you. Well, I am the Executive Vice President and COO of the Bakewell Company, and we are the owners of the Los Angeles Sentinel newspaper and the LA Watts Times newspaper, but I kind of do it all. And we also own a real estate development company, so I also oversee that, obviously, with a few employees, but yeah, I do all that.
Okay. I had just had one question. Have you read the findings from the gender equality study that was commissioned by Mount St. Mary's by any chance?
No.
Well, there's a lot of interesting findings there. Just wondering if you, after reading it, maybe you can share with us later what you think some of the top priorities should be for the commission and how we can address that.
Sure.
Colleagues, do you have any questions?
I have one quick one,
Mr.
Madam
O'Farrell.
Chair. Thank you. So good to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
What are some of the issues under your purview on the Commission on the Status of Women, or do you find particularly interesting to focus on?
Well, I've had an interest in this commission for a long time because I really do, one of my passions is really women and girls. I have 5 kids. I have 3 adult sons and 2 adult daughters, and I work very hard, and I think at this stage of life, I think I have a lot to offer, so I'm always interested, especially inner city children, because I've worked with Crenshaw High School, Dorsey High School, with the Urban League, a lot of nonprofits, Brotherhood Crusade. So working with girls has always been, fascinating to me, and I think in this position, I'll have an opportunity to make a difference.
Thank you.
I just have one request. About a year ago, I had asked the commission to help me do some public announcements and education around the paid family medical leave in California.
Mm-hmm.
It's my understanding that the city of Los Angeles, there's a lot of our employees who haven't taken advantage of it or don't know that it exists. We currently pay into the system. So if there's an opportunity for the commission to come back to our committee and just perhaps let's just figure out how we continue to increase education around this important issue.
Definitely.
Okay?
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Oh, Mr.
Yeah.
Rue, did you have a question?
Sure.
Yes, I just want to say I'm excited that you'll be joining the commission. Having worked in South LA for over 10 years under Supervisor Burke and at Kettering Community Mental Health Center, I'm very well familiar with your publications and the community coverage that it provides.
Thank
So I look forward to working with you, and it's an issue that I'd love to work with my chair, Councilwoman Nuri Martinez, on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Excited.
We're going to take one public comment, but you can
Okay.
go ahead and sit down. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one card for item 1, Antonia Ramirez.
Again, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you. Ms. Pamela Bakewell, on your appointment to the Commission on the Status of Women, I hope that you will include women like me who are old-fashioned and who do not subscribe to radical feminism or hater of men or in competition against men. Yeah, there's some men I'm not crazy about, but okay. Secondly, I'd like the Commission to help women against gang stalking crimes. Please Google search retired ex-FBI agent Ted Gunderson, again, Ted Gunderson, on YouTube regarding gang stalkings. You will see that many women like me who are homeless are because we are victims of crime and are being gang stalked. There's nothing on the radio, there's nothing on TV, there's no magazines, there's nothing on anywhere that one can find out about gang stalkings. To get out of this, there's no way to get out of it. Once you're in, you're blacklisted. There is no way out. That's why you become homeless. No matter what you do, no matter how much money you spend, you are homeless and you are being harassed night and day and attacked, beaten, and robbed. And this is every day, every night. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. If there aren't any more cards, I don't have any more cards. With no objection, I'd like to move item 1 for approval.
So moved.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, let's move on to item number 3.
For item 3, you have a Municipal Facilities Committee report in response to motion Weezer Blumenfield. This has to do with the feasibility of initiating a Civic Center master plan to assess and coordinate remaining Civic Center redevelopment opportunities.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Ms. Chair, council members. My name is Josh Romer from the Office of the City Administrative Officer. The item before you is a report adopted by the Municipal Facilities Committee in July regarding a Civic Center land use plan to be considered concurrently with Motion 150554. Just by brief way of background, the city has around 5,500 employees that are currently leased in the greater downtown area, but in buildings that are relatively remote from City Hall, or are in leased facilities, or in buildings that are relatively outmoded, or some combination of those three. This results in approximately 1.6 million square feet of city workers that are in suboptimal space. At the same time, the city also owns a lot of property near City Hall in buildings that are, or properties that are underdeveloped, undeveloped, or nearing the end of their useful life without significant investment. So these buildings include Parker Center, a number of city parking lots, City Hall South, Los Angeles Mall. All of these are potential opportunities to relocate city staff into city buildings that are new and actually relatively close to City Hall. Accordingly, the city's real estate plan, first adopted in 2009, it advises the city to consolidate our offices by developing or rehabbing new facilities near City Hall, on city-owned property. So the general goal is to improve the efficiency of the city by co-locating workers in a relatively walkable campus, and also to minimize lease and debt service costs, which currently cost up to $33 million a year. So to date, the city's efforts towards this goal have focused on building a new building on the Parker Center site. The current project is anticipated to be up to 750,000 square foot building to replace the Parker Center. This, if built to the maximum capacity allowed by the IR, wouldn't necessarily solve the city's issues in terms of meeting that 1.6 million square foot demand for office space. And even the 750,000 square foot project is not necessarily the way the city is going to go. There are current plans to potentially talk about rehabbing the Parker Center, which would result in an even smaller project. So for all these reasons, it makes sense for the city to start looking beyond Parker Center into kind of like the broader Civic Center campus area in terms of how to house its own city workers in an efficient way, and potentially come up with opportunities that are beyond city uses, including economic development or open space or cultural facilities. So the report adopted in front of you by MFC recommends expanding the planning efforts beyond Parker Center and looking at all the opportunities within the city's broader ownership of properties. The consultant services proposed in the report will result in the development of a Civic Center land use plan. The plan will evaluate properties for development potential per the zoning, and will recommend the best locations for municipal uses, most likely centered around City Hall, because the city owns a lot more properties than we need just for city office space, we'll also identify opportunities for other types of development, potentially economic development, commercial or office, a private office use, also potentially cultural space or open space opportunities. And then beyond the uses, I think the land use plan will also be able to focus on how to improve the connections within Civic Center, but also to the adjoining uses like Union Station and Little Tokyo and El Pueblo, these other civic assets that are very nearby, but we don't really do the best job of integrating amongst all of these. So the Civic Center land use plan proposes to tackle all of these sort of issues. The report also recommends engaging professional expertise to help us think of how to come up with how to develop city office space beyond just debt financing and building it ourselves in a way that basically puts all the onus on us and all the risk on us. So we want to look at other opportunities to potentially do a public-private partnership or develop facilities in tandem with other public agencies. So the proposed activities described in the report will be performed in coordination with the CAO's office, the CLA's office, BOE, GSD, and other stakeholder departments. Results will be reported back to the Municipal Facilities Committee and Council. It's intended that this is like a very first step in terms of the city taking a look at its opportunities in the area. This will be a long process, but we wanted to take the first steps with the proposed services described in this report.
I have a question. In reading the report, I also read that there is a request from Councilmember Weezer with regards to preserving half of Parker Center. So how would the land use study incorporate his request to possibly look at an analysis to see if it's feasible to also preserve a portion of Parker Center?
So Mr. Weezar's motion had two items, and one was advising or asking city staff to do the land use study that's described here. The other portion of the motion, the other recommendation, asked BOE to move forward with developing basically a fourth alternative for how to develop Parker Center in a way that might not result in complete demolition. It would rehab more of the building. So that's actually being, that other portion of the item is being kind of moved under a separate cover. So I'm actually only responding to one portion.
Can you look at an analysis of preserving Parker Center and concurrently work on the land use plan?
I would say those are two different tracks, but the Parker Center, the feasibility study on Parker Center would feed into this land use study because it would help us understand what's the square footage we ultimately require or would like to get on Parker Center.
Members, are there any questions?
I have a question.
Mr. O'Farrell.
Madam Chair, thank you. Mr. Romer, you mentioned Parker Center. So the current building, there is a preservation, there was an idea for preservation. Is it on the list of historic registered landmarks or it's nominated? Someone nominated, I
believe
understand.
it's eligible and it was nominated. And
but it's pending. It's not.
It hasn't been declared.
It has not been declared. It could be renominated.
Okay. And how much square feet does the current building have?
I'm actually not familiar with the exact specifics on Parker Center. Other colleagues in my office are more focused on that element. I'm really actually only responding with any degree of knowledge on the proposed land use plan. So unfortunately, I don't have that information, but I can have it distributed by the end of today because I know all that work has been done.
Yeah, when it makes sense, or when you come back. I'm just following the issue like everyone else. I was just curious to see where that stood. And it'd be helpful to kind of know what we're looking at. And so I'm sure you'll bring back information on Councilmember Weezar's parcel preservation plan, and that'll be helpful as well. So thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Okokori.
Thank you. I haven't really gotten into the depths of this yet, but three thoughts that I'd like to raise now, and I hope will be incorporated into the feasibility plan and the master plan. First of all, with regard to Parker Center, I know there's discussion about preservation and rehabilitation and so on, but conversely, I would also be interested in what valuation can be realized from that property if it's used for its highest and best use, including selling it to the private sector and realizing the revenues and then using those revenues for, other parts of the master plan. Two opportunities that I think we have very close to City Hall that should not be missed are Fletcher Bowron Square, which right now is an utter disaster. And if there's ever an opportunity for a public-private partnership, that would probably be it. to actually have a mixed-use facility that includes offices and retail by someone who actually knows how to operate retail would be a great opportunity. And then the other one is the County Board of Supervisors has for many years been talking about moving out of their building and acquiring a new headquarters building for the county. I don't know if that's because of space needs or because of perceived obsolescence of their building, but in either event, that seems to me a great opportunity. I mean, if there's ever another, if there's a likely purchaser of that building, it would seem to be us, and that might present an opportunity for consolidation of some of our departments within a stone's throw of City Hall. So those are the only 3 points that I'd like to
Thank you.
have a little further thought on.
Any other questions? If not, I have comment cards. Okay, first speaker, Aaron Jimenez. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Jimenez of the Central City Association. CCA supports a public-private partnership to redevelop city-owned properties in the Civic Center areas, which include the Parker Center site, the Los Angeles Mall, and City Hall South. Redeveloping these facilities has a number of benefits, including an opportunity for economic development with the possibility to add restaurants, office space, and other retail in those facilities, as well as additional open public space. CCA strongly supports a public-private partnership as well as a partnership with other public agencies to alleviate some of the costs associated with redevelopment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, Antonio Ramirez on item 3.
Parker Center has got a dreary and negative spirit. If you walk all around it, it's got such an ominous negative spirit. Maybe it needs a cleansing. But I noticed that it doesn't have an elevator to go downstairs, and the escalator is much too thin. My shopping cart got stuck there, and it broke. So it took me a while to get that shopping cart out of there. So you need to work on elevators and escalators, widen them up a bit. And you've got a large homeless population down there, but great real estate property there. And again, you're homeless. If you can get rid of your gangs, your homelessness, and your gangbangers, that would be a step up. You need to first work on eradicating the gangs, the homeless, and Skid Row homeless, because a lot of them are violent. Boy, are they violent, and I've had some experiences there. Get rid of your homelessness from Skid Row, your gangs. And, excuse me, Buscaino. And you've got a lot of property crimes. Utilize, please, the surveillance cameras. Please. Thank you.
Ms. Ramirez. Next speaker, Wayne Spindler on item 3.
Yes, your good friend Jose Huizar is downstairs in the John Ferraro chambers at the Plum Committee. You can ask him.
You can actually stick on the item.
Oh, I am. He's the proponent of the motion. Isn't that on the item? Don't be a baby. Now, this is actually a good idea. I mean, it's rare when, and the questions asked were actually good, except for one member, Paul Krokorian, really doesn't understand that this building needs to be designated a historic monument. So you go to the Cultural Heritage Commission, which I've actually attended 2 meetings. None of you have. You don't even know where it is. Can't tell me what they do. And you have to nominate it through Cultural Heritage to pass it. The committee probably would unanimously pass it and protect it. Then you can get federal and state funding and redevelopment into something really nice. Consider that plan.
Next speaker, Diana Yadoyan. Did I get your last name right?
Actually did, surprisingly.
Oh.
No one ever knows how to pronounce.
Yadoyan.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you, Diana Yadoyan from Councilmember Jose Huizar's office. We would just like to ask to amend our initial motion for the second instructional paragraph to say, I further move that Council instruct Bureau of Engineering and other departments as necessary to prepare additional analysis in the Los Angeles Street Civic Center redevelopment project EIR to assess a new alternative that would preserve important historical elements of Parker Center's 8-story office tower. while allowing the new facility to accommodate the city's needs as well as potential development opportunities. This makes it a little broader, and we can kind of do our due diligence to see what parts of the Parker Center we can partially preserve or not preserve. In the initial motion, it was very specific on which part to preserve. This just makes it a little bit more broad and easier to see what we can preserve, if anything. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Did you want to add anything to this from the department? No? Okay, so should I read the amendment, Madam Clerk?
Yes, please.
All right, so the amendment, this has been Mr. Weezer's request, is to further move the council instruct Bureau of Engineering and other departments as necessary to prepare additional analysis in the Los Angeles Street Civic Center redevelopment project, EIR, to assess a new alternative that would preserve important historic elements of Parker Center's 8-story office tower while allowing the new facility to accommodate the city's needs as well as potential development opportunities. Is there any objection to this amendment?
No.
Seeing
So
none?
moved.
So moved. So there are no other objections to this item. Madam Clerk, I move to approve item 3 as amended.
So at this point, you're just moving the motion itself? You're not making any recommendations on the CO report?
We can move the item, but we would add this second amendment. We would add this is an amendment to the second instructional paragraph of that item. That's the request from Mr. Weezer's office.
So I guess my request is there a way that the committee can adopt the item?
Yes. My
Wait.
question was, are they supposed to also be acting on your recommendations?
Yes.
I thought we did that. That's what we did by moving the item forward and then additionally adopting this amendment to the second paragraph
Okay.
of the motion.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. I'm clear about what we're doing. Okay. All right. Seeing no objections, we move item number 3 forward. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can we move on to item 4?
For item 4, the Municipal Facilities Committee has submitted a report. This has to do with a request from the Department of General Services to increase, to a proposed increase of $1.5 million in the contract ceiling with CBRE Incorporated for project management oversight of the restacking project at 201 North Figueroa Street.
Good afternoon, Melody McCormick from GSD. When we brought this report before you last month, we outlined the 5-phase project for the 201 restack. I brought a color map this time so that it's a little easier to read. At this point, we are asking for authority to increase the CBRE contract to accommodate the phase involving the Los Angeles Fire Department. They were originally Phase 4. However, after reviewing the space, they've agreed to essentially take it as is. This reduces construction costs and, of course, time involved in occupancy, and therefore we're able to move Phase 4 forward and actually start on that piece now. So we're requesting authority to increase the contract to $3.2 million to effectuate that phase of the project.
What are the anticipated costs of the remaining phases?
The total cost of the project that's outlined in the report, is approximately $12.6 million. At this point, we're basically about $664,000 shy of the total budget, but we're continuing to actualize costs as bids come in. For example, the costs of Phase 1 have been somewhat reduced by $200,000. So as we continue to go along, we will continue to bring to you the additional phases of the contract. There's $8.1 million in MICLA funding that's available for space optimization for general fund portions, and then there's also additional funding from, say, the Development Services Fund that's being looked at for additional phases.
And this is how you plan to fund the remaining phases?
The remaining phases, if you take a look at the report, there is an outline of the tentative restack funding sources for each of the phases. The Development Services Fund is basically covering the cost of Phase 1, which was approved last month, and then the cost of the Development Services Center, which would essentially be the next phase. And then the remaining portion of it would be funded by the MICLA funding that's available for space optimization. This particular phase that we're requesting approval for would be coming out of that MICLA funding that's been set aside for space optimization.
Are there any questions, members? Mr.
Yeah.
Krikorian?
Maybe I'm not following you completely on that. So
Okay.
the increase in the ceiling for CBRE for project management oversight
Correct.
is being taken out of MICLA funding
Correct.
that would otherwise be used for space utilization.
It's set aside by the city administrative officer for space optimization projects. In other words, taking projects that are currently in leased facilities and moving them into city-owned facilities. And so there is a master plan for the restack that was approved by the MFC, and it's displayed on that matrix that you have before you.
Do we typically use MICLA funding for project management oversight?
We typically use it, yes, for projects whereby it covers the total cost of relocation.
Okay. So, all right. So that
Tenant improvement, project management,
oversight
relocation, exactly.
is included within the larger capital budgets
Correct.
appropriate for MICLA funding.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I-
Mr. O'Farrell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What amount of this cost will be reimbursable, if any, from insurance?
It will not.
No.
The insurance company is actually covering the cost of floors 2 through 8 in the 221 tower. The city obviously had the option to restack, and when LBBS basically left the building, that gave the city further opportunities to restack. For example, RAP was split across several floors. It gave us the opportunity to consolidate them down on floors 2 through 8. So the insurance funding is covering those costs. There have been some departments that have been moved off of leases. For example, the Behavioral Sciences Group, one of the LAPD residential inspection groups, have been moved off of leases and outside facilities, and for efficiency's sake, for example, both residential inspection groups are now going to be on consecutive floors at the 221 tower. So there was a whole restack process that took place. The 201 restack, none of that is going to be covered by the insurance proceeds because those funds are strictly being utilized for the restack of floors 2 through 8.
Would it be accurate to say that because of the fire and because of taking a closer look at our own needs as a city, that it just makes sense for this outlay of money because it'll, as you mentioned, bring the departments closer together?
Absolutely. It provided us an opportunity to restack departments based on the current number of positions that they had, not perhaps positions that they used to have. So there were efficiencies gained that way. It allowed departments who are split between various floors, Department of Aging, for example, Recreation and Parks, it allowed them to consolidate. It finally allowed both LADBS inspection groups who were split between 2 different facilities miles away to come together, and now they're going to be on consecutive floors. For the fire department, it allows them to consolidate facility groups that were up here in the Civic Center, and then some of them up at FIG. Now they're going to be all on one floor, the 12th floor, with some additional groups on the second floor. So it's really been an opportunity for the city to kind of resolve a lot of its issues. We're going to be moving LAPD groups onto floors 15 and 16 in the 201 tower off of a lease, and then a city attorney group that's also going to be moving off of a lease. And of course, those are long-term savings to the general fund.
Thank you. And you don't expect any additional costs other than this 8.1 MICLA funding to accommodate?
At the moment, we do have a $660,000 shortfall, but we're basically representing that as this is an estimated cost of the total project. As individual bids come in from various subcontractors working on the project, we're actualizing those. In essence, that's how we achieve the savings for Phase 1. We know it's going to cost $200,000 less than what we had anticipated last month when I was before you. So we're going to continue to do that. So I'll be coming back to you for the next 3 phases of the project, and so hang on to that matrix.
All right. Any other questions, Mr. Krikorian?
Yeah, just to follow up on Mr. O'Farrell's point. So I get that there's efficiencies that are realized regardless of the reason for the relocation, we're realizing benefits from this. That being said, the default position, it seems to me, should be that all relocation costs are attributable to the occurrence that should be insured. And so am I correct to suggest that what we're paying for that's not being reimbursed by insurance is the delta between what it would cost to do the relocation necessitated by the fire and to do the relocation in the way we want to do to maximize efficiency?
Right. So in other words, the insurance company, and most of this is being negotiated by, of course, our CAO risk manager, but the insurance company estimator had provided an estimate for placing us back into the building as is.
Okay.
In other words, you can put recreation and parks back on 15, and then you can put certain groups here. But we knew that in the event, if LVBS left, that having upper floors vacant would make them more marketable, whether we're going to go out to lease or whether we're going to be attracting another government client or whether we're going to be using the upper floors for our own sake. It made sense for the city to restack. There is some cost to the city for doing that, but not going back in as is, but we're going to realize efficiencies long term, by having done it this way.
But that first number that was estimated for the status quo.
Right, that was an as is. We'll put you back as is. If you want to restack and you're going to be moving.
That will get reimbursed by the insurance company as a result of the.
Right, there is a small delta that the city pays in terms of, additional costs because of the restack, but that's been budgeted, so.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
And we'll hold on to the matrix.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one card for item 4, Wayne Spindler.
Oh, good one by Weezer again. Yes, CBRE is a real estate company, well known in the city. Good company. $1.5 million to manage one building, 201 North Figueroa. Well, that's a bargain, because that's the way you bid on contracts. You don't bid. You didn't take this to the insurance company first and negotiate it in a pre-settlement, because you don't know how to do that. So David knows how to do that because he was been in the private sector, but you're going to overpay. But the good news is the insurance is going to cover it, which is what we were listening to multiple questions by one of the committee members, and he kept trying to repeat the same question, and she kept answering it 3 times. The insurance covers everything except the excessive stacking and the lack of space that's going to be available on the other floors to lease. So anyway, good job by Jose Huizar.
There are no more cards on item 4, Madam Clerk. If there are no objections, I'd like to move item 4.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to item 7.
For item 7, you have motion Fuentes Harris Dawson relative to instructing the Department of General Services with the assistance of the City Administrative Officer and in consultation with the City Attorney to negotiate and execute a lease with LA Family Housing for use of the vacant space at the city-owned facility located at 7747 Foothill Boulevard in Tahunga, California.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. John Shepard, General Services Department. I'm here to present a motion that Councilmember Fuentes has made requesting General Services Department to lease office space to LA Family Housing at CD7's field office located at 7747 Foothill Boulevard. LA Family Housing Services provides services that include street outreach, engagement and intervention, temporary housing, permanent supportive housing, and support services for those that need housing. I'm here to answer any questions regarding this motion and the request to General Services Department.
I have no questions. Does anyone have any questions? No?
Move approval.
I see no. I have one card. Thank you, sir. Wayne Spindler?
How much is the lease? See, we didn't get that little tidbit, and nobody wanted to answer that question or ask it. How much is this lease going to be for, and how many years or months is it going to be for? And did we put out this property for competitive bidding with another bidder and another nonprofit? Answered all those questions is no, but there's no oversight. At least everybody shows up to committee meetings, 5 of them. So, anyway, it's a shame that we have these vacant spaces sitting for years and decades, and then finally somebody comes around and we don't have a competitive bid on the lease. The city's bankrupt and it desperately needs to have these properties that are owned in the city maximized for value because we're broke. But it's a good organization. Might as well go to them if it's going to go to somebody.
Okay, if there are no objections, I'd like to move item 7 for approval.
Without objection.
Thank you. Let's move on to public comment. Madam Clerk, Antonia Ramirez.
Thank you. In order to make LA safe, beautiful, and vibrant, you need to get rid of the wetbacks and the gangs, for they are uncivilized, violent, nosy, racist, hate mongers. Then you will be able to stop homeless victims of crimes and won't overburden the LAPD and Sheriff's Department. Then the city's aesthetically elegant architecture will be masterfully preserved, and the flow of commerce will thrive. And for God's sake, use the surveillance cameras to help victims of crime. Stop dragging your feet on solving crimes. Let us vote for El Jefe, Donald Trump, who has a flame burning inside to restore America. He has a true, genuine leadership. God bless Donald Trump, who has a desire to restore this beautiful country. God bless America. God bless the United States military. God bless our pilots. And God bless Gillespie. Oh, have you seen the pilots flying over the City Hall at night? It looks spectacularly beautiful. So again, God bless the city of Los Angeles. And God bless this wonderful man, Donald Trump. He's just a spitfire. I don't know if it's his New York, but he's a spitfire.
Thank you very much for all that. Next speaker is Sherry Bell.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Sherry Bell. I'm with the LA Black Workers Center, and I'm here just to call on this committee to just try to think about expediting the process to amending the current Labor Standards Enforcement Division to include local enforcement of anti-discrimination laws. Discriminatory practices are a violation of civil rights, especially when they occur in hiring and on the workplace, and they go hand in hand with wage theft and exclusion. Local government can create meaningful partnerships with state and federal agencies in their attempts to address racial disparities in the workplace. So just knowing about 50% of black workers in LA County being unemployed or underemployed, this is a matter of urgency. We want this committee to see this as a matter of urgency by putting this on your agenda in October, on October 13th, because, if a worker has a problem with the cat or garbage pickup, you can call the city to address that. There's nowhere to call locally when you're invisible. Thank you.
Next speaker, Shamoya Holland.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi, yes, my name is Shamoya Holland, and I'm 41 years old, and a member of the Los Angeles Black Workers Center. It is a matter of urgency for black workers that Los Angeles take action to provide local enforcement of anti-discrimination protections. I am a single parent who has been unemployed for about 3-4 years. I am currently battling homelessness because I cannot find full-time employment. I've worked at jobs where I was the only black worker, and despite being a good worker, I was let go without just cause. I fill out countless job applications. I've often felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. I can't give up. I'm ready for a fresh start, but I am concerned that no one cares about this issue. Black workers are over 50% not working or working poor, but we have no one to call here in LA to address our injustice. Our only option is an overloaded state agency that may or may not call back. So we need local enforcement so all workers who are skilled and trained can have equal access to good paying jobs.
Thank you. Next speaker, Wayne Spindler. You okay?
So good. Black Lives Matter and jobs matter. And the city council for too long has ignored job creation in the city. You got to be unemployed for 3 years. Come on, David Rue, and your company, you got a job. Nice lady. One of you can give this lady a job. You got 66,000 city employees. What do? Collecting pensions. And they sit there, yes, bow your heads in shame. Yes, Paul. You should, because you know that you're destroying jobs, you're not creating jobs. $15 an hour minimum wage is a death sentence for the city. All they have to do is be outside the incorporated city limits, and they're going to get $4 or less minimum wage. So where do you think businesses are going to go? You just don't want to admit it. So yes, bow your heads in shame. And as we hear the sound, that's all the businesses leaving the city as we speak.
We're just trying to breathe.
We're just trying to breathe, that's correct. Okay. I have no more cards under public comment, Madam Clerk. I move that we adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.